Hello, everyone. Welcome to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is a topic based conversations about the ups and downs of dating. Whether you're 18 or 80, you have a story to tell. But the gist of this podcast is just a conversation, no judgment. Today, I have Shannon Petrovich. Did I pronounce your last name right, Shannon?
Yes, you did. Well, thanks.
She's a therapist, author, and YouTube creator. Shannon earned her bachelor's degree from Bowdoin College and her master's in social work from the University of Connecticut. She earned her clinical sciences in social work and substance abuse counseling and is a board certified diplomat in clinical social work. Shannon, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
Thanks for having me. And I'm doing great. How about you?
I am good. I am good. Today we got a good topic. It's dealing with and healing from a toxic relationships or toxic
Right.
relationship. So, Shannon, how did you get started in this field? What was it about? Maybe helping people out, both men and women, or if it's just women, whatever. But how did you get started in this field? What was Shannon's journey?
Well, most definitely men and women. In
Yeah.
fact, I think more men than women reach out to me in a lot of different areas of my professional life, and I think that's because they maybe haven't learned how to talk about their feelings so well and have a harder time with emotional stuff and relationships. But no, it's always been men and women.
Hmm.
And I think originally I wanted to be a doctor or veterinarian, but then I realized that my interest was more in helping people, and it may have been partly my own journey with making a mess of relationships and kind of feeling like I was always flying blind. And then
I think we've all been there.
started, yeah, and then figuring it out and wishing that I didn't have to figure it out on my own, but maybe being able to share what I've learned with others. And that's been the journey of my book and my YouTube channel and being a therapist.
It's funny that you're one of the few people that do admit it. The people that I've interviewed on the show, they admit when things are, not up to speed or whatever. And I think having you on the show where you're a therapist, you're an author, YouTube creator, and just talking about toxic relationships. And one of the things, Shannon, I noticed is that sometimes people just don't let go of it. Is it because they're afraid to be alone? Is it because maybe the other person has a hold on them? Like in your experience, what have you seen or heard about toxic relationships?
Yeah, it's so complex. And this is why so many of us feel like we're flying blind until we get those insights from somebody else.
Mm,
And then we can fly out of that fog. But part of it is that we may bring our own history into the picture. So the way we talk to ourselves inside our own heads is created in early childhood, sometimes before the age of 5 or 6. And if we
mm,
are toxic to ourselves in our own relationship with ourselves, then we are literally resonating with other people who might be toxic with us. So we might accept a more toxic relationship if we have sort of a toxic childhood relationship. And so it's really important when we talk about recovery that we look first at our toxic relationship within our own heads. Are we super critical? Are we, vicious to ourselves when we're frustrated or sad or disappointed or upset? And if we are, then we really have to look at that first and start treating ourselves as we would treat our own best friend. Would you be that harsh or critical if your best friend were going through something hard? And the answer is always no. I would never talk to anybody else in the world like that. And it's only inside my own head that I talk that way.
you, it's funny that you say that, Shannon. There was there's a buddy of mine. This is maybe about a year or two ago, and he was having issues. In fact, it was the other way around. It was a female friend of mine, and she was having issues with her boyfriend. And I even mentioned, and I hated to do this, but she was just in such a state of despair and being pissed off, and but not being scared, but just feeling like she was walking on eggshells. And I remember I said, and I shouldn't have said it, but I said, you know what? If you feel that way, then dump him. If you feel that way, then dump them. Because you know what, and Shannon, I went through that with in a relationship with a woman that and I won't say that she was toxic, but it just wasn't. we weren't compatible after a while,
Right.
and it slowly but surely I had a self awakening that I was able to move on. But it was easier because I didn't have to see this person, whether in any circles. And if I
Yeah.
was to see her today, I would say, "Hey, how you doing?" I would definitely be cordial. But are we seeing, or have you been seeing more and more people are just not letting go because they don't want to be alone? Or again, I'm repeating it again. Uh, yeah, go ahead.
Right. So actually, everything you said is true.
Mhm,
They don't want to, a lot of people don't want to be alone because they're not comfortable with how they treat themselves, and they're
mm,
not, comfortable basically in their own skin. So part of recovery is rebuilding your sense of self and your life.
mm.
They don't want to let go of this thing that they have invested time and energy into. And they also are very confused about why they're not feeling good within the relationship. If this person has hooked them into this toxic relationship, then it could be that they are in a trauma bond with that person, and that's a really complex set of things that happen when we're in a relationship where somebody's very manipulative and controlling. And when someone is doing that kind of thing to you over time, where they might be isolating you from your people who would kind of say, like you did, dump him, man. I love that you did that, because a lot of times people are like, oh, tiptoeing around. They don't want to offend you. Sometimes we need to hear, dump the guy
Yeah.
and move on. You're worth more than that. So, or dump the girl. This is not toxic, comes in all flavors. So this is not a men only thing by any stretch. But no, it can be all of the above.
Mhm.
And people don't like being alone. There's sort of societal judgments around that, and lots of reasons why people won't let go.
I look, you know what, Shannon, and we're talking with Shannon Petrovich. I went through that when I was much younger. I remember, I think I was in my 30s. I don't know if it was like 35, 36, 37, something like that. I remember one of my coworkers had asked me if I have any kids, and I'm like, no, I don't think I want any. I kind of made my peace that I'm just not made to be a father. I know that, and I remember she was saying, "Oh, that doesn't look good. That doesn't look right." And I'm like, "But to who?"
Wow.
I'm like, "But to who?" "Oh, it just doesn't look right." And
Wow.
I just kept on repeating it. "But to who?"
Good.
Because nobody here is paying my rent. You're not paying my rent. You're not paying my bills. No offense, but this is how I feel. And
Right.
it made for a lot of lonely days and weeks and months because I was out front. Listen, I just
Right.
don't want kids. And that's my story. That's for another time. But so so Shannon, when you deal with whether it's a man or a woman, and they have this issue with the opposite sex or whoever it may be, um, are there one or two steps that you could maybe confide in them, or just say, hey, if you follow these or become more self-aware, once they get into your coaching program?
Yeah, and a big part of why I started a YouTube channel and then ended up writing this book, Out of the Fog into the Clear, journaling to help you heal from toxic relationships, is that um, sharing this information one person at 1 hour at a time felt
Mm,
like too stingy, and I really wanted to share it with more people.
yeah,
Kind of came on the heels of a bunch of real high celebrity suicides that happened a few years ago,
yeah,
and I really felt like, man, there's just millions of people in the world that feel all alone, and even the people who have money and have access to therapy feel all alone and confused and don't understand a lot of basic mental health stuff.
right,
And then as I started my channel, it kind of veered into narcissistic and other toxic relationships, because that's what people desperately wanted to know about and hear about and understand better. So that's where that all kind of evolved from. And and so I wrote the book because I think as you journey through this process, you have to first recognize the toxic relationship that you have with yourself, and
hmm,
really start to understand that and change that languaging that you do internally. Then you need to start looking at what you accept in your life. You need to understand how you lost yourself in the fog, the fear obligation and guilt of this toxic relationship. And so that's kind of a whole journey in and of itself. Did that person start with that love bombing? And so this is the typical process, is that somebody starts in with the love bombing and even mirroring, and you think, oh, this is the one, this is absolutely the one, never felt this way, blah blah blah. But then they kind of pepper in some isolation and some gaslighting and some devaluing of you
Mm,
and of your people, so that they are beginning to let you see that they're manipulating and controlling rather than actually loving. Love is a verb. When you are loving someone, it's an action, or
right.
a lot of actions that are empathic, compassionate. They want to know you. They want to be a part of your life. They want to help you grow your life and yourself. They don't want to diminish you, like a toxic person does. And so a narcissist is somebody who wants all the energy and attention and effort towards them, and they want to diminish you in order to make themselves feel more puffed up. So you can kind of
Wow.
start to see that process over time, and that devaluing starts to erode your sense of self and your sense of confidence and your sense of being lovable at all. So
Mm,
they're kind of doing this cycling of, I love you and you're not really lovable. And so
wow.
and that's where you get really hooked, because you think, well, he loves me or she loves me, but nobody else would, because they're telling me how unlovable I am and how that much they have to put up with, blah blah blah. So it's really twisted, but it that's what kind of wiggles its way into your heart and soul, and makes it really hard to let go.
Jesus, I mean, holy cow! I've been hearing the term about love bombing and gaslighting. Yeah, and like you said earlier, it's one of the keys is rebuilding ourselves. But okay, so we see that this person is doing this to us, and how do we become self-aware? Is it just one day sitting by yourself and just realizing what this person has done to us? Like, how do we become self-aware of that? If you're not even paying, maybe you're not looking for those signs, you're just looking for whatever the approval of the other person. Is that such a thing that we can, maybe like you said, maybe we could self-awaken ourselves, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where a lot of people get very, very lost. And I certainly did when I was in negative relationships way in the past, is that you we're taught in our culture to follow your gut, follow your heart, blah, blah, blah. That is the worst, worst advice anybody can give you.
Mhm.
Because in that toxic relationship, your heart, which I would say is that little reactive emotional mind, is hooked into that person, and you're hooked into placating and peacekeeping and people pleasing that person, whereas your head says, well, wait a minute, I'm getting screwed around here. I'm getting, I feel worse about myself every day. My friends and family don't like this person and they told me so. I can add up the facts with my rational mind and say I should not be in this relationship any longer, but my heart is still hooked. And so if you listen to your heart, you're going to stay forever,
Wow.
unfortunately. And so you have to shut that down and quiet that down and say, okay, I know you still feel love, whatever that is, that hook is for that person, and you can still love and leave. And you can use your wise mind and say, I need to leave this relationship for my own mental health, for my own well being. And so I'm going to walk through those steps, even though my heart is going to go crazy and want to go back to that person in the worst, worst way. But I'm going to quiet that down and I'm going to walk through the leaving anyway.
So that's how we break our own hearts then, by realizing,
Yeah, basically.
yeah, by just like you said, just don't follow, like I said, like you said, don't follow your heart, because this person is gassing you, so you're just feeling, like love, and you just take everything they say, because they're the only ones that are gonna love you, and no one else will. Um, are there? I know you. So do we, how do we separate? I'm talking about the physical part of it. Okay, maybe in our mind we could say, okay, this person's not this, and from A to Z, we could come up with a bunch of bad stuff that person is
Right.
doing, gaslighting, love bombing, all that. But how do we separate the physical part of it?
Yeah, so you have to separate both. You have
Okay.
to separate emotionally and physically, because some people will get away from a person and then go right back, or they'll
Mm,
get away from a person and still be obsessed with the person. And so they'll be, stalking them online or ruminating about, oh my gosh, they've got a new partner and now they're getting married and now they're happy. And why was I such a loser? I couldn't make them happy, and
right.
yada, yada, yada. And so you have to emotionally separate, like, okay, I've got the facts, I'm following through on separating. I've got to emotionally step back and then physically step back. And there's a whole wide range of toxicity, from mild to moderate to very severe. If
Mhm,
there's abuse, you've got to separate immediately
right.
physically and then sort out your emotions later. And again, you use just the facts, ma'am. And just look at the facts of it. And that's why I do, encourage people to do a lot of journaling, because if you can write out all the
Ah.
facts, then they're on paper, then you can't kind of go back into denial with yourself and go back into, oh, well, but maybe, I don't know. You've got it on paper and you've written it down and you've kind of committed it to yourself, and then you commit yourself to walking away from it.
That's I love that point. If you do journal, and then you could just see maybe once you have it on paper, because always people say whether you're working on your goals or you
Hmm.
just write down your daily activity, but once you see it on paper, now it's there forever unless you throw the book away. But but if you have it on paper and then you could just go over the week, like this is what I did this week, which that's something I want to do, write down, which I do journal, but sometimes I don't go back and look at it. It's like, what's the point if I'm writing it down? I'm not looking at it. So should we do that? Write Monday through Sunday, and then Sunday night before we go to bed, then just look at the previous week's writings, and maybe we could see more and become more self-aware that this person is not good for us.
Right.
Hey, I have to do something about it.
Yeah, and I call that our radar reality, because
Mm,
the facts really speak to what exactly is going on here. Where it's, again, our amygdala, our fight, flight, freeze, reactive, emotional mind is
mhm.
just hooked into all kinds of garbage. And if we can stay focused on that radar reality, those, it, and when you're in that fog, it literally feels like you're in the pea soup. You can't see your hand in front of your face, literally. And when you look at that radar screen, I'm a sailor, so this is where the analogy goes for me. When you look at that radar screen and you're supposed to follow these little green lines on the screen, it's
Mhm,
scary. And
mhm.
it's very scary when you're trying to get out of a relationship, even based on those facts, because your heart and soul are just hooked into this person. But if you can trust that radar, trust those facts, and then walk it through. And everybody's different in terms of journaling. And I like to just encourage people to do what works for them. For a lot of people, journaling is, if you give them too much of a structure and a format, then they just rebel and don't want to do any of it. So I just encourage people to do what they love, and do what works for them. And even if you work through the book without journaling, but just answering those questions in your mind, I think
Mhm.
you'll find that it helps you to get clarity, and that clarity will guide you forward so that you can save yourself and rebuild that sense of self and that sense of your life.
Wow. I was thinking, as you were saying about maybe some people don't like journaling, maybe do we use maybe a voice memo on our phone and just maybe
Sure.
speak into it? So whatever works for you, like you said. Okay, so
Yeah,
so we realize that we're in a toxic relationship. We want to get out. Now, how important are our friends and family in that equation? Um, because eventually you're going to need support, especially if you're
right.
by yourself and you're now, um, you're relying on this person or, the relationship, but now you're letting it go. Now you realize, hey, this person's not right for me. How important are our friends and family?
Oh, they're so crucial. And hopefully they weren't sucked into the lies and stories and gaslighting from that person,
Mm,
because sometimes that person weasels their way into your friends and family um, circle, and kind of takes off with it. So that sometimes people will say, I have to find all new family or friends, and I can't talk to my family right now because they think I'm the crazy one. I'm like, okay, well, you can't talk to your family right now then because that's toxic too. And what you need to do is rebuild and find new connections for this moment. But a lot of times people will make up a story about their friends and family not being there for them because they've
Um,
separated and isolated and gone off with this person that their friends and family knew was bad news. And I would encourage people to revisit all those old connections because more than likely they're thrilled for you and they're there for you and they will be, that stability and to help you rebuild.
wow. It's funny. Sometimes we don't. I remember when I always wake up in the morning, I always say, I say my affirmations, and one of them is thank God for my friends.
Nice.
Because I got good friends that I could talk to and all that. And like you said, who you can talk to and who you stay away from, because after a while, some people don't want to hear it, or you could just see the
Yeah.
look in their eye, like, oh boy, here we go again. But so once you start, so we talk about journaling, whether it's journaling or put it through a microphone, I mean a tape recorder, whatever you call it, voice memo. We got the friends and all that. How soon though do we go back on the market again?
That's a
No,
great question too.
because
It really is. And
I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I got out of this, and some people, they might go months and maybe, I don't know, a year or so where they don't want to, be back on the market. And then all of a sudden they start getting that feeling back again. They let go of their past, they let go of the toxic relationships. But is, in your opinion, or have you seen, is there such a thing as a time limit to get back out in the market?
no, I think everybody heals in their own time frame, but it's a really important piece that a lot of people say, "Well, I'm never going to trust anybody again,"
Mm.
and then other people jump in and trust too quickly and trust the wrong person again. And what I like to say is, don't ever trust other people again. You need to learn to trust yourself. And so
Mm.
when you become your own best friend, when you start really becoming a person who knows and cares about and respects and loves yourself for your character qualities and your values and who you are as a core person, then you can have a really trustworthy creepometer, is what I call it. So,
I never heard that one
so
before. I gotta admit, a creepometer. I heard about men, some men being creeps, but a creepo. I like that. I gotta remember that one.
so when your creepometer is very trustworthy, it doesn't matter who you meet. You will
Okay.
know that that person is somebody that you can trust and that you can be in relationship with, and you will know when they're not. And you will be able to maintain your sense of self and your sense of okayness and rightness and your emotional distance from somebody who's not okay. And you will be able to get healthily involved with somebody who is okay. And I did a video a few years ago, called How to Develop a Trustworthy Creepometer. And the one thing that will disable it every time, and the one thing is intimacy. So if you get intimate too quickly with somebody, your creepometer shuts down, your whole upper brain goes offline, and you're at the whim and will of that person. So our culture sort of says that we should jump in the sack with anybody pretty quickly. And I really encourage people to recognize that you are giving trust to a person that you don't know enough to trust. So if you know a person well enough to give them your car keys, your house keys, the PIN number to your bank account,
Oh
then
boy.
you're ready to have sex with them. If you don't, then you're
Yeah.
not. And
Right.
why would you give your body to somebody when you're not even ready to give over your car keys and your house keys and your bank account? So I think that a lot of foundation of trust needs to be built. You need to understand what happens when this person gets frustrated. What happens when they're disappointed? What happens when their ego gets a hit?
Mm.
um, all those things are how you really get to know who a person is. And if you haven't spent that time to really know that person, then how are you jumping in the sack with them?
Right. So in other words, our first 90 days could be the honeymoon phase, but then day 91, we see somebody acting a little different than they were the day before, the day before, the day before. So we
Right.
gotta we gotta start looking for red. Should we start looking for red flags that early though? But I guess it makes sense because you don't want to fall into the same pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's really important to check in with yourself throughout every interaction with a new person so that you're recognizing and watching their behavior, not their words. Because
Mm.
people can say all the right things and say they are the most compassionate person in the room, they're the most empathic person in the room, but if you don't see that in action, don't believe it. And if you see somebody laughing at other people's pain and being non-empathic and non-compassionate and not interested in other people, you know who that person is and what they're about, and you can be friends with them or acquaintances with them with an emotional distance. You don't want to share and become close to somebody that doesn't have the empathy and compassion that you need in a relationship.
Well, listen, to me, the quote of the day is watch their behavior.
Yeah.
That because I've been through that where, this woman I was with, and oh, we got to spend a romantic weekend together, and it was word after word, and I'm like, shit, I'm not seeing any action here. So then again, it was just all just words, so
Right.
again, just I started realizing that I'm like, yeah, I got to get the hell out of here because this is not working out. Or I'm hearing are just words and no
Right.
action behind it. First
Right.
of all, Shannon, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really appreciate it. And before I let you go, just a couple more things. Talk more about your YouTube channel. And I definitely want that video that you made on the creepometer because I want to put that on the show notes.
I'll send that to you.
Okay.
Yeah, so how to develop a trustworthy creepometer and one thing that will disable it. The My YouTube channel is just called Therapist Talks, and so you
Wait a minute.
can
What was
look
that
that
name
up.
again? Because there was a little glitch in the, yeah. What was it?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Therapist Talks.
Therapist talk. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's also my website. And my website has a newsletter. I'll be starting to do more blogging, and it has access to, and it has links to all my videos and to my book, which is Out of the Fog into the Clear, journaling to help you heal from toxic relationships.
No, I love it.
And
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
also have a Facebook page, Therapist Talks, and Instagram, and I don't follow that as much. I do live streams every other week, and they're live stream question and answer. So if people have questions, they can jump on and put that in any comment section of any of my videos, and I will bring them forward to the live stream and answer them for you the best I can.
No, definitely. Again, I'll put that in the show notes. And one more time, where can people find you?
Therapisttalks.com
Okay.
and Therapist Talks on YouTube.
All right. Sounds good. Well, anyway, Shannon, I could talk to you probably for another hour and a half because this was
I
fascinating for me.
know. This has been
Um,
really fun.
yeah, no, thank you. And again, Shannon, thank you so much. And I just don't know what to say, but I'm bowing to you.
No, no, no. Well, thanks, Will. This has been a blast, and I'm really glad that we were able to connect so quickly and that you welcome me on your show. It means a
No,
lot to
again,
me.
no, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Well, everyone, that was Shannon Petrovich, and you can find her at therapisttalks.com. That's therapisttalks.com. Shannon, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. Much appreciated. You can find me at peopleondating.com. That's peopleondating.com. Check out our past shows and check out our blog. Also, when you get a chance, please go to Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe, leave a review, tell us how we can make this show better. You can also find me on Google Podcasts and Spotify. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, I'm Will Morales, People on Dating. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day, and please stay safe. Bye.